Welcome back, guys, to another presentation from Up to the Time. Today, we'll be looking at foundations, and in particular, pad foundation. But before we go any further, what is a foundation? The foundation of any building serves two main purposes: distribute the weight from load bearing walls to the soil or bedrock beneath, and keep groundwater or soil moisture out. What is a pad foundation? Pad foundations are a form of spread foundation formed by regular, square, or sometimes circular concrete pads that support localized single-point loads such as structural columns, groups of columns, or frame structures. This load is then spread by the pad to the bearing layer of soil or bedrock below. This type of foundation is best used to place houses on stilts on sloping land. So let's have a look at some examples of pad foundations. So the first one is, let's start here. What do we see here? Well, let me take out my arrow and start describing what we can see here. Well, we can see this rectangle down here. Or first, we can see this is an isometric um, pad foundation. We can just outline down here the concrete base. This is the concrete base, yeah. And this is the depth or the thickness of the base here. But what do we see inside? Inside we see the steel stirrups, and the steel bars, all plaited and joined together to help make the frame stronger, right? Um, this would be considered the column shaft around here, going all the way up to where we will meet the floor level. Or sometimes these columns go all the way up to the roof level. But this is typically what a pad foundation looks like when we look at it on an X-ray style. X-ray meaning that we can see right through the materials, and we can see what the materials inside, how they are composed and how they join together and create a unit. So let us clear this and let us move on and look at another example. All right. This shows the same thing, however, this shows another view. This also shows what it will look like from plan and what it will look like in section. So I'm just going to highlight, this is the plan over here. You can see this is the base. This is the base, which I'm drawing in green, which is also the same thing here. That's the base there. And this is also the base right here in section. And then now I'm just going to indicate where the column starts. Column is right here going up, and these go up, and that would occur somewhere around here. All right. So that's how the whole thing looks like when we look at it in isometric and in orthographic projection. And let's look at it now when you would put this down into the ground. When we dig a hole and we place this structure into the ground. This is what it will look like here. I think this is fairly easy. You can see to the left and right is the ground, and you can see the columns there placed. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. And then if you can observe, there's someone over here working on the column. So that's about it when we think of pad foundations. And now let us go back over now into AutoCAD. Oh yeah, I need to show you guys what this will look like in three-dimensional form. Right guys, here is the pad foundation. And as we can see the base that is on the rectangular base here. And then we can see the block wall coming up, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 levels of blocks being stacked. And if you recognize that these blocks are also doubled up, which gives the whole thing a square look. And this is how the column would be created. And this is a pad foundation. And finally, we can see the steel that comes from the ground, from the base all the way up through the opening holes of the blocks. And then this would be tied to the beam at the top. This is what a pad foundation would look like when we just orbit around it. We are going to be drawing this pad foundation in orthographic projection, and then we're going to come over here and draw it in isometric projection. But what we have over here is an isometric projection of a series of pad foundations all linked together. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they are all connected. So this one shows a pad foundation in isolation, and this one shows pad foundation as a unit, to create one. If this were a floor here, this would be the span, and we will fill in here as our floor level, right, in these two open spaces here. But so far, let us get straight to what we're going to be doing. Pad foundation, orthographic projection first thing. So let's look at this drawing. I'm going to reproduce this drawing, but let's read the drawing so that we can understand. All right, we are going to be using 200 millimeter blocks, but we are going to use 200 millimeter blocks side by side, so that will give us a thickness of 400 millimeter. So that's the first thing we need to observe. That's what that 400 millimeter stands for. And what's the thickness of our base? The thickness of our base is 1200 millimeter. No, sorry. The width of our base is 1200 millimeter, and the thickness is 200 millimeters. So that's a rectangle, 1200 by 200. And I usually go 7 courses of blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. However, I went to 8 this. You guys at home can go 7 or 8. Doesn't really matter. All right. So let us start off down here, and I'm going to use down here. I always struggle as to where to draw, because I want you guys at home able to see as I'm drawing what the finished product would look like. So I'm going to probably start here. Okay. So let me go on to my outline layer, and let me change this over to the ortho mode. And to access your ortho mode, it's down here. You can press F8. All right. So let's go 200. Let's go across 1200. Then go up 200. Let's connect this right here. So it's been connected there. Let's find the midpoint of this. I find the midpoint, and then I project a line upward. Now I'm going to offset 200 to the left and 200 to the right. Remember, because our bricks are 200 thick, but they're 2 courses laid next to each other. So that's a 400 thick wall. That's what our column is going to be, a 400 thick millimeter column. Now let us offset my 200 up to show the 8 courses that I'm going up. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. Now what do I do here when it's like this? I'm going to trim my drawing. So I just go TR, to trim, and we just trim these off to the left and to the right, and then above also. So far, that's what we have. Now, let us put in the plaster that comes on the outside. It's a 10mm layer plaster wall to the left and to the right. Now we don't really see that, so we need to put this into a different layer. So I'm going to come in, zoom in, and select these two outer lines, and I'm going to put them into my construction layer so that from a distance we'll be able to see the plaster walls. Let me put this back in frame. Now, what do we need to do? I need to assume a ground line. So I'm just going to randomly put a line. That's my ground line, right? Sometimes I like to connect. Yeah, that's like that. That's a ground line. Now I'm going to offset 100 down because I want to give my ground a thickness. Doesn't matter. Well, I try to give it a reasonable thickness. The reality is that the ground goes infinite, so you can't really give any thickness for the ground. But however, in representation, we need to give this ground a thickness. So I've just given that a thickness of 100mm thick. I think I might increase that to another 100. Yeah, it looks like it's a bit too thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab. So I can remove the bottom line here, and I'm just going to grab the hatch. Then I'm going to pull this down 100. Yep. Do it on the right, no, do it on the left. Pull down this solid hatch 100. I always grab the midpoint here and I stretch it. So now I'm going to match drop this MA to match drop. I'm going to grab the ground level hatch from this already drawn, this finished drawing, and I'm going to transfer it over here. Okay. So that there's our ground level, and that's our columns. This is our concrete base. Now, we need to hatch in here. Just place a solid in there and match drop this. Come over here, match, drop. Simple like that. So that changes to concrete. Now what we need to do is hatch in here. Next, again, I'm going to fill this with solids and then just change the pattern. So it's all done. Match drop MA, or we can go out here to match properties. So far so good. Now we need to add some notes to this, and we need to also add the steel. So let us put in the steel. I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to start by putting the steel in. I find the halfway point, project a line to the left, to the right, and I'm going to find this halfway point here. Oh no, we can't find that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this line there, extend that to there. Now I can find the halfway point there. Now I can project this down so that connects there. I'm just going to project the steel slightly above the course of blocks. I'm going to copy this, CO to copy, grab that line and place it over there. Now I want to place my steel in a different layer. I'm going to place my steel in my hatch layer. And that's my steel in. Now I need to shape it. So I'm going to offset my steel and give it a thickness of 10 mil. Good. This is where I'm going to end my steel. Offset that 10 mil. Okay, so now all the steel is in now. Just going to make sure all the bars are within the same hatch layer. Okay, I think everything is good. That looks good. That's our steel in, and that's our the stirrups. Now what we need to do is I need to put in our steel bars, and I'm going to grab them from here. Actually, no, I'm just going to create new bars. I'm going to come here and create a bar circle. I'm going to make my radius 10 mil. Yeah, that's it there. And I'm going to place these in here. I said distance. What distance am I going to use? So let me just draw a line. You know what? I'm going to divide this here, div, to divide this line. And I'm going to go with something like 8 divisions, right? Now, why didn't I see the divisions? I need to adjust my point style. And now the divisions appear. It's good, perfect. So I'm going to place them down here, and then I'm going to move them up. Like this now. Grab them all together, and then let's go copy. So we get a set of bars there, and we get a set of bars under here. I think that's good enough. And then I can delete those. So those are my bars in there. Let me take off my point style and put it back to a point, or speck of dust as I like to call it, so that we can't see it any longer. Now, change these bars and place them into my hatch layer. Okay, that looks good. So that's a good representation there. Now let us transfer the labels. This line here is the ground line. This is the line that you will be walking on when you're approaching the building. So let me just identify that. Grab the note here from on this joint, and we'll just place it here, right? That represents the ground level. Now, let's set up a margin over here, and I'm going to be placing in some notes. So I'm going to go over to my text layer, and let's see what we can place in here. Let me just move this whole structure closer so that we can see what we're doing. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to identify what happens here down at the this sub level. What I call the sub level is the level that's under the ground. So I'm going to identify this, and that is our concrete base. And now let us come up. These here will be bars, steel bars. These are the steel bars. And these will be the miles stirrups. Actually, I'm going to label this as the miles stirrup here, and then identify the bars somewhere else. Right, miles stirrups. Over here now would be, let's call that the plaster wall. Oh, that's not straight. That's not straight. Plaster wall. Steel bars. Um, and this will be our block work. Block work to form columns to create. Let me just put here block work slash column wall. Column wall. I think that's it. So we got our block work, which is the column wall. We got our plaster wall. We have our steel bars. We have our concrete base, and we have the miles stirrups. And these are the main things that we need to identify so that we can demonstrate to someone that we understand this detail. Now I'm just going to remove this line here. This was a margin line to make my notes very neat. And I'm going to copy the word pad foundation up here and then just bring it down here so that we know what we're doing. So that's the first part finish, which is drawing of the orthographic projection for the pad foundation. Now let us move over and we're going to do the isometric projection. Now, in doing this isometric projection, I want to use a different technique. Before you guys will see me go over to isometric drafting, and I would turn that on. But I'm not going to be using that as the main tool today when drawing this isometric. I'm going to be using polar tracking. Let me show you how I'm going to set this up. So watch closely. I'm going to open up the arrow, press the arrow, and I'm going to choose my tracking settings. Now, I like the tracking setting 30, 60, 90, 120. Why I like that? Because that allows me to draw in my isometric projection without having to switch the tracks every time I want to change and go in a direction. All right, let me just show you this quickly. So I can draw, and that's the 30 degrees, and then I can come up, and then I can do things like that, right? And that's just simple without me having to switch the track. So this is just an example of how I'm drawing without switching the tracks. If I were using the ISO drafting, if I want to go to the left, I will have to stop and come down here and switch over to the left track. If I want to go to the top plane, I will have to switch from left to top plane. But in this in this polar tracking mode, you don't. Once you know the direction you're going, you just hint the mouse in that direction and it will provide the angle needed for that direction. And the angles are all preset. I hope you guys understood that. But here, let me demonstrate how I'm going to use this tool now. Okay, so let's draw the base first. So we know our base, we go up 200. So I just go up 200. And then I know I'm going to go across 1,200. And then I know I'm going to come back down 200. Then I'm just going to join that there. So that's our base. This also goes, 11200. Oh, oh boy. I dropped it. So let's do this again. Up 200. angle across 1200 at 30 degrees. Come back down 200. Let's connect that there. Good. So that's one face drawn. And then I'm going to draw the receding face down 1200. 1200. Go up 200. So that's my receding face there, and I'm going to copy that. Done, done. And that's how we get our box, right? And these are the parts that we're not going to see. So that's cool there with me. Let me just put this into the proper layer, which is outline. And on that note, I'm going to go onto my outline layer and continue drawing from there. So now that we have this, we need to establish the midpoints. And these are our midpoints. So this is where I'm going to cast up my 200 millimeter wall. Now, let's go here to the left and to the right, 200. 200. Let's go 200. 200 in this direction. Okay, so we should have something like this. We should have a square in there. And now what are we gonna do with this square in there? Now we're gonna go up and we're gonna project this upward. And I'm going to trim in here because we don't need these pieces. Let's copy this around. Let's remove these bits. We don't need these bits here. Serve the purpose. And now this is it, but we don't need to detail this. We don't need to detail this. So let's assume a point where we're going to stop. And I think I'm going to stop around here. So I'm just going to, yeah, that looks good. Let's trim off here. And again, I just assume a random place. You guys got to get the idea of drawing random sometimes. There isn't any measurement. You're just drawing it, and you're drawing it in the form of sketching. So when I say draw random, this is a random height. It's not a height that I pull from here that I'm trying to match, because the height doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you express the detail. Doesn't matter the height. It can go up to whatever. Just get it drawn. So stop worrying sometimes about, oh, I don't know the height, so I can't draw it, and just put in a height. All right, let's go on now. So this is our column connected to the concrete base in its raw form, just like that. Now what we need to do is we need to detail this. Detailing is the form of, let's expressing this somewhere so someone can better understand this. What is happening up here now? So let me offset 25 mil in all around. And why am I doing this? I'm actually inserting the holes that go in here. All right. So I'm just doing that. And let me show you the holes I'm talking about. These 4 holes in here. That's what I'm doing. So now I'm going to come and find the midpoint here. Connect it down to there. And then I'm going to offset 25 to the left and 25 to the right. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm going to find this midpoint here and do that. And I'm offsetting 25 to the left and 25 to the right. So now I think I did enough that I can insert my holes there, right? Let's trim this. Let's trim again. Okay, good. Just put that in there. We'll come down to there. I really like joining this polar tracking mode. Saw a student of mine join with this, and it impressed me. And I decided to try it out, and I realized that I don't think I'll ever really go back to using this isometric drafting mode. It slows you down, and I'm all about doing things quickly, shortcuts, moving as fast as possible, and getting the task done. So I generally wouldn't use that anymore. But however, if you're comfortable using it, then go ahead. So now those are my blocks or my bricks laid in there. And again, we know that this goes down, so I can show if I want to show this now. This is not on. Let me move this over to there. Okay, that looks good. Let's see what's happening down here. Okay, this needs to be adjusted somehow. Cool. All nice and clean. Now these at the top of these holes you will find steel. So I'm going to insert my steel there. I have the steel drawn already out here, so I'm just going to be copying and pasting. I'm not going to spend time drawing over these steel bars. No, 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 no. Not today. Just copy and I'm pasting. To draw these steel bars, you would have to work with an isometric circle. You would have to draw an isometric circle in top plane to get in these steel bars there at that point. I think that looks good so far. And now we need to insert the steel bars that you would find on the concrete base. Okay. Which are these steel bars here around here. So I'm just going to grab one. All right, now it's time for me to insert. Now, I don't have any reference point, so I'm just going to place this first one there. And what am I going to do? Divide this. How much did we divide last time? We divide this into 7 pieces. Can't remember. So let me go div. Again, I think it's 7 pieces. Let me turn on my point style so that we will see. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this now. Grab it, stick them all here, and then I'm just going to move them down onto the midline. All right, good now. Let's see how to do this now. Move there, then fillet that to there, then fillet that to there. No, so that can go. Yep. that can go. So that's how we inserted our steel. Piece of the circle I didn't bring over. I didn't bring over that other bit of the circle. It's not a big problem. We now need to show this the mild stirrups connecting to this. I wasn't thinking I could have left that line that I had here. Let me just do this at the end, just to indicate that. And project that across and do that. And give this a thickness, and my thickness is 10. Alright, make sure they're all connected. Just the mild stirrup. And just place this into the layer that I'm using, which is with my hatch layer. Alright. And now we need to show these and that they're offsetted at 200. So let's go copy. Let me just bring this down. 200. Oh, that means this goes down 400. Boy. 600. And now this goes down 800. This goes down 1,000. And this goes down 1,200. And now 1,400. 1,600. And 1,800. 2,000. Ding, ding, ding. 2,000. 2,200. Oh, can we get 24? Oops. 24. All right. So this is what happens there. You know what? I'm going to do this. Boom. 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 Gone. All right. So that's what it will look like with the bricks laid down. Um, you would see a midline right here. Separate these. So let me just insert that. Yeah, that's how that will look like in its true representation. Now we need to insert the hatch. So let's go for the concrete. So I'm going to match. No, I'm going to put a hatch in here. It's going to be a solid. Then I'm going to match it to the hatch over here, which is the concrete. Yep, so that's our concrete base. This right here is our earth to show the level of the earth, which is above the concrete base. It's to show where a person would walk. But I'm not going to insert it in this detail. It might be a bit confusing. So what I'm going to put in now is the concrete that is poured in here to fill in these holes and also to keep the steel straight. That's very important. So let me that. Yeah. All right. I think the ones that here are a little dense, are a little more dense. So let me just Yeah, that looks better now. Let me take off my point style at this time and take it back to a speck of dust so that we can't see any point styles onto the screen. And I think this is pretty much done. All that I need to do is label what I've done. So I'm going to draw down my margin again, right around here. I'm going to go over to my text layer and I'm going to select my leader, which is up here. Select the leader and let us point out some things and go. That's the end. And that would be considered the steel bars. Steel bars. Steel bars. This is the concrete base. This is the column. This is the brick or block work or block wall. And I'll put slash there, column. And in this one, I didn't apply any plaster layer as I wanted to show you guys how this will look before we actually apply the plaster. All right. What else do I need to insert here? I'm thinking. Oh yeah, disturbs. Introduce connections here. So can I get it in here? Yeah. Mile steel stirrups. STIRRUPS stirrups. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's how this whole thing would look. All right. So let's look at the difference here. We got our steel bar. This has a plaster wall to hide the lines of when you lay the bricks on top of each other. So the plaster wall hides that. Pretty much the same. I just haven't represented where the earth would be on this one. I don't think I'm going to do that. That might be a bit confusing. So I'm just going to copy this over here, and this would be our pad foundation, and this would be pad foundation isometric. Right? Isometric. Now, before we wrap up, let's look at this drawing to the far right, and let's analyze this. This is a series of pad foundations right here, a series of pad foundations, all connected. And that's all that shows. And we have here our midpoints. These midpoints, why do we have these midpoints and these red lines? That is one tool you can use to make sure to distribute your columns evenly by placing these grid lines. So these are a form of grid lines used to make sure that our columns are placed down at the equal distance. All right, so that's why I have those red lines there. Okay, so this brings us to the end of pad foundation. I hope you guys learned something new from this. And just before we finish off, just to recap, pad foundation is basically used to place houses on stilts on sloping land. All right. And this is what it will look like in orthographic projection, where we have the mild stirrups, the concrete base, the steel bars, the plaster wall, and then the column wall going all the way up to where you would start casting your floor, etc. and this is how it would look in an isometric projection. So what I can do to distinguish these is place this as pad foundation, orthographic, 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 and this is isometric. All right. I hope you guys understood this a little better and you're able to draw this and understand where this would be used. Um, I always encourage you guys to practice and practice more to get this and to understand the notes, how to label this. You should be able to draw this from either orthographic or isometric projection. All right, this brings us to the end of pad foundation. So far, we have done strip foundation, we have done raw foundation, and now today, pad foundation. All right, as usual, please subscribe and like the channel. And more so, do yourself a favor and practice this that I've just done. All right, take care until next time. I am out.